Good morning to everyone. I'm happy to be here among you. I'm Gaetano Sabetta from Urbaniana University. I'm here as the moderator of this third group, and I'm going to present you Dr. Piotr Adamek. He's from Poland and belongs to the Society of the Divine Word. He's assistant professor at the Department of Religious Studies of the Fujian Catholic University in Taiwan and director of the Moderator Sinological Research Center at the same university. So I will leave to our esteemed.
Thank you. Good morning, buongiorno. Thank you, Professor Sabetta, for this invitation, for the introduction. It's my great honor and pleasure to be here today in Roma Eterna from Taiwan, from the end of the world. Even if the question about center and periphery remains open for discussion. And I'm glad to attend this international conference on mission, Missio Dei, in commemoration of the founding anniversary of the Society of the Divine Word. It's not a lecture, it's not a completed research, it's just a humble sharing about my experience and reflection from an encounter with Chinese culture and Taiwanese folk religion. As already said, I am an assistant professor at Fujian Catholic University. This university was founded 100 years ago in Peking, in China, and was and is supported in some way by Divine Word missionaries until today. I'm also responsible for the University History Office, Monumenta Serica Research Center, and Center of Interreligious Dialogue. I am particularly interested in the dialogue with Chinese, or what we say, Taiwanese folk religion. Therefore, today I would like to focus on it especially. I see there are many experts of Chinese religions and also interreligious dialogue. So once more, there is just a humble experience. I would like to present or to share a few questions, a few situations that got me thinking. Several answers I had in the dialogue with Chinese culture and Taiwanese folk religion, which inspired me to reconsider what it really means for me to be Christian, to be a Christian in Chinese context, in Chinese culture, and what kind of interreligious dialogue or dialogue with Chinese culture, intercultural dialogue, dialogue with other religions I would like to participate, to develop. And the first question is quite simple. It's the questions I asked my students. I have about 70 students every year in the first year in the religious studies department at Fujian Catholic University. You see, the simple question was actually, what religion do you practice? What religion do you belong to? I thought it's a very simple question. In Chinese, it's just 你有什么宗教? And this question maybe today a bit sensitive in Europe, but at least until now, it was not a problem to ask it in Taiwan. Before I asked this question, I was convinced that I would hear different answers, different religions to which students belong, maybe Buddhist, Taoist, Christianity. But I was surprised because almost 90% of my students answered that they did not have any religion, that they did not belong to any religion. And I was a bit surprised after my experience in Taiwan. And I continued to ask, how many of you participate in the ceremonies to honor ancestors? And almost everybody said they participate. I asked, how many of you believe in ghosts in this or another way? And 90% said, yes, well, I believe. How many of you go to the temple from time to time if there is a need or with somebody? And once more, 90% said, well, we go there. So why did you say that you don't have any religion? The answer was very easy, because this is not a religion. We don't belong to any religious institution. We don't profess any religion. We simply do it. Yeah, it's natural that, well, we just go with our parents and pray in front of the altar of our ancestors. It's just normal that we go to the local temple if we or somebody from our family needs support. This is not a religion. This is our life. And this made me think about the definition of religion, but also about my own Christianity, to which extent I belong to Christianity, to which extent I just speak about Jesus Christ, just call myself a Christian, and how much I really live Christianity, how much is something natural for me, how much it's for me an intellectual conviction, affiliation, institution, and to what extent is it's really a life, the life in the presence of God. This was the first simple question. The second one was more specific and concerned Taiwanese temples. I am really interested in different temples in Taiwan. There are plenty of temples of every turn, actually more than roadside crosses or chapels in my native Poland. Really plenty. Statistics indicate that the number of about 12,000 larger temples are there in Taiwan. And according to the average number of temples per square kilometer, Taiwan is considered the country with the biggest density of religious buildings in the world. So I wanted to know what religion these temples belong to. According to many published statistics, also if you look at Google Maps or whatever, most of the temples are labeled as Taoist or Buddhist. However, after I asked my colleagues in the religious department, my Buddhist colleagues, they said, no, they are not the real Buddhist temples. Actually, there are relatively few really Buddhist temples or monasteries in Taiwan. They look differently, different from common temples. And of course, in the Buddhist temples, usually they don't worship any deities. And only a few percent of Taiwanese population really identify themselves with Buddhism. And similarly, there are even less, let us say, purely Taoist temples. And if we say Taoist, we think actually only about Taoist priests and not about believers. In Taiwan, most of Taiwanese, about maybe 85%, the statistics differ, are somehow connected with the so-called Chinese or Taiwanese folk religion, Minjian Xinjiang. And most temples are also related to this tradition. The most important deities include, for example, Mazu, Guanyin, Tudigong, Guanggung, Caishen, many others. And most of them are not sensu stricto Taoist or Buddhist deities. Maybe except for Guanyin. Guanyin is actually is considered as a bodhisattva in Buddhism, but in the local religion, she's just considered as a local deity helping people. In fact, popular religion temples have plenty of their own deities and combine and mix very freely various Buddhist, Taoist, Confucian, and other elements. Each temple has its own deities, its own holidays, its own celebration, and is basically independent from other temples. So why they are called Buddhist or Taoist temples? Because about 50 years ago, all Taiwanese folk religions temples had to register and to identify themselves as either Buddhist or Taoist. There was from government the indication, and there was no other choice left. There were 24 deities, Buddhist or Taoist, you should choose. Therefore, many of them just placed there, for example, a statue of the goddess Guanyin in the temple and called themselves Buddhist. We are Buddhists. Others did the same with Taoist deities and were called Taoists from that time. However, this designation has remained usually only conventional. All temples continued to practice the beliefs they had before, the practices of folk religion. And until today, you can often find in the same temple different deities associated with Buddhist, Taoist, and other traditions altogether. I had learned that the name of the temple, or even its official affiliation with one or another religious tradition, does not necessarily correspond to the deities inside and to the belief of people. Taiwanese people come to a temple not because it's called Buddhist or Taoist temple, but because they find help with their problems there, because they feel their requests are answered. Sorry, this is... I think for me it was also reflection. We stress our Christian identity, our uniqueness. We stress our name is our mission. But maybe there is nothing wrong not to start from limits and from borders, but to stress in the beginning, especially the common experience of the divine and the common problems of people in need. I think it can be a good start point for the interreligious dialogue with folk religion, dialogue of life, sharing everyday experience in the hope for the common growth. My third question was related to Confucianism, because I have always been interested in Confucianism. According to some scholars, a philosophy, according to other, a religion, with many values that are supposed to play a similar cultural role as so-called traditional Christian values in Western countries. However, after I arrived in Taiwan, I met nobody who would say, I am a Confucian. The so-called Confucius temple in Taipei, in my town, is practically empty and only visited by tourists. Only once a year, on September 28th, there's the Day of Confucius, the Teacher Day, there is a formal ceremony held there in honor of Confucius, but even the people who attend the ceremony don't consider themselves as Confucians. Well, it's said that elements of Confucianism, together with aspects of Buddhism and Taoism, are all present in the everyday life of Taiwanese and in Taiwanese folk religion. However, there are no people belonging to Confucianism in Taiwan. That is why I was really pleased but also surprised when I heard that the Holy See Dicastery for Interreligious Dialogue had organized an international workshop in our university and was preparing a document on Confucian-Christian dialogue. I was really interested, and during the conference, I asked the questions I have. You can see the question. Who is this document actually intended for? Who do we want to dialogue with as Christians? Who are these Confucians as partners of dialogue? And I expected to hear some clarification about specific group of people, maybe professors of Confucian, professors of Confucian culture, of Confucian philosophy, maybe scholars cultivating Confucian culture, or somebody else, so a group of people. But the answer I received was a surprise to me. I was told that the Christian-Confucian dialogue does not primarily concern scholars or other experts, but the Christian-Confucian dialogue is actually the internal dialogue of every Chinese Christian with himself or herself. This is the dialogue about how to reconcile Confucian and Christian values in one's everyday life. How to be a good Christian in a Chinese culture. I have to say it was new for me. I understood that dialogue means not just a kind of, confrontation or opposition between my Christianity and somebody else's religion, not just a comparison of my faith, my ideas, my understanding with someone else's view, but the essential part of dialogue is in fact also the dialogue of Christianity with myself, dialogue with my own culture, my own religion, my own history, my own tradition. And I have to say, I found it a bit difficult, quite difficult, to separate accurately the Christian faith, my Christian faith that I profess, from my Polish tradition, from my understanding, and also from my own experience, my history. But I see it's a common experience in Taiwan, not only among Christians. Most people are not affiliated with a specific religion. On the other hand, it's said that every Chinese person is in some way a Buddhist, a Confucian, and a Taoist in the same time. A Confucian in society, it's the official saying. Chinese are Confucians in the society, a Taoist in his or her home, and Buddhist in the temple. I see usually religion does not obligatory divide here in Taiwan. Maybe religion does not have to isolate, to distinguish between inside or outside of religion. At least in Taiwan, there are often no clear boundaries between religions either. There is a certain religious continuum. Different elements of religion interpenetrate each other, and Taiwanese can emphasize one or another element, but remain generally open to each other. Maybe that is why Confucianism is still alive and deeply embedded in the consciousness of many people, even though they don't go to Confucian temples. I want to jump to another question, because this Chinese religious continuum is increasingly, as I see, absorbing elements of Christianity. This is most visible in some new religious movements, sometimes called syncretic, such as, for example, Iguan Dao, which includes about 3% of Taiwanese people. Despite of its strong roots in Chinese culture, Iguan Dao aspires to be a universal religion and assumes that all religions follow different paths, but in the same direction toward God. They call God's eternal mother, Ushen Lao Mu. Sorry. You would see Iguan Dao believers, they study the Bible alongside with Buddhist sutras and Taoist texts, and they encourage to pray in their temple to Buddha, to Muhammad, to Jesus, and to Our Lady, to Mary. Namely, according to common misunderstanding in Taiwan, only Protestants or Christians believe in Jesus Christ, and Catholics believe in Mother of God as the supreme deity. Iguan Dao believes that there is no conflict here because all religions lead to the true God, to the eternal Mother. They don't emphasize differences, dogmas, etc., but they invite everybody to go together to God. Well, but we can see there are new religion movements, syncretic movements, but I see that Christian elements come also or appear also in Taiwanese folk religion. A year ago, I visited a village in the seashore, in the village called Neihaili, not far from the Taoyuan International Airport. And there is a very beautiful Taiwanese folk religious temple, full of light. Maybe, sorry. Well, you can see it. The temple is called the Temple of Goodness. Or you can say also kindness, goodness, Tungshanci. And the main and the only deity there, worship there in this temple, is the Mother of Goodness, Tungshan Ma. You would say just a very normal folk religious temple. As in most other folk religious temple, people entering the temple pray for health, for happiness, burn incense and throw divination moon blocks, these wabwe, on the floor, asking for the right decision. However, what is unusual in this temple is that the deity worshipped in the temple, the Mother of Goodness, is in fact a Catholic sister. A Dutch missionary who supposedly preached the gospel there in Taiwan many years ago. And I asked the people there, why you as non-Catholics worship a Catholic sister? They stress there is a Catholic sister. And the answer, you can think, was very short, because she helps us. Because this sister always answers our requests. They told of many miracles that they experienced. For example, there was a woman told of her child who had become seriously ill, and there was no medicine, no hospital near the village, no doctor. So the woman spontaneously turned to the Mother of Goodness, to the Catholic sister, for help, went to her grave and asked for healing. And according to her, the child was immediately healed. Another time, there was a man driving an ox cart along the seashore, got stuck in the sand, and despite of all efforts, he was unable to move forward. And in desperation, he called out to the Dutch Catholic sister, the Mother of Goodness, for help. And you can think, unexpectedly, the cart rolled forward without a hitch. There is also another miracle, what the believers said. The recent vice premier of Taiwan, Chen Wen-san, so it's already high level, says that he owes his career to this Mother of Goodness, to this Catholic sister, namely shortly before the 2014 election, Taoian mayoral election that time, when most pre-election polls predicted here clear defeat by over, so he had less than 20% of voices. He went to the temple in Neihaili. He asked for help from the Dutch sister. And then the next day, when the votes were counted after the election, Cheng was unexpectedly declared the undisputed winner. You can see there are many experiences they have. The faithful in Neihaili believe that the Dutch Catholic sister is actually a goddess now, that she helps, heals, and performs miracles. They come to her because they feel she answers. And interestingly, although the cult of the sister has been already going for at least 100 years, the faithful to this day emphasize that the sister was a Catholic nun. And even more, they highlight Christian values she had. She said, they said sister was always, until now, is always very good. So the goodness, the kindness is one of the main value they stress. There is usually other gods in Taiwan, in other temples. They can help, but sometimes if they are angry, they can also make something bad. But the sister, as the people say, she helped always. And they stress also principles that guided the sister, especially help for children, women, and the people in need. I see this is a very unique opportunity. So I see this phenomenon as a very unique opportunity for a dialogue of Christianity with Taiwanese folk religion. And I see that some Christian values are in some way absorbed into the Chinese folk religion. Yesterday, I think the Jan spoke about inculturation as a culture. Actually, it's the culture who inculturate Christianity, but maybe there is something that also some religions inculturate Christianity. 10 years ago, this is the next question. In 2015, a large bronze information plaque was installed on the wall of the temple, describing the history quite precisely and transparently, the history of the Catholic sister. According to the information on the board, you can read it later in Chinese, around 1850, there was a European missionary, a Dutch Catholic sister, who came to the village of Neihaili. However, the board did not provide the name of the sister or the religious order she belonged to. And from the description, it appears that the sister managed to build close relationships with the local Taiwanese population. Full of kindness as she was, she helped local residents in their many everyday problems. Especially she helped children, women, and people in need. Already during her lifetime, she was called respectfully Mother of Goodness. And after the sister died, The local people buried her on the edge of the village, and despite of her death, they continued to come to Sister grave, asking for her help with various problems. Intrigued by this story, I decided to investigate who this Catholic missionary really was. This mysterious person standing at the beginning of the phenomenon of the cult in the Temple of Goodness. And it seemed to me, in the beginning, it should be very easy to find out, to find further information about the sister. You can think about historical sources. There are many sources about missionaries, maybe Taiwanese local chronicles, or maybe our monastic archives in Holland or in Rome. However, I very quickly realized that according to the generally accepted history of Christianity in Taiwan, in 1850, there was no Christian missionary, no priests, no faithful, no Dutch religious organization, and of course also no Catholic sisters. So it seemed unlikely that the single woman could come as a missionary and be there between the people. And I asked the question, how do you know that the sister came in 1850? How you know she worked there? I expected actually that they speak about some historical sources, I don't know, maybe some oral tradition, but they said they have more reliable sources, namely the sister, the Mother of Goodness, contacted them in person through a local medium, testifying that I was here in the year 1850. Sorry. So because of this testimony, the local population was able to determine this exact time of her missionary work. Of course, I understand that from historical point of view, it's changed everything, but what was interesting for me, that these believers in Neihaili, for them, the sister is really present there. It's not just historical person or something else, but she is really present here and is actively helping. There are many questions I asked there. I just jumped to a short conclusion. Because there are many questions also, how should I make the dialogue with folk religion, what we can and where are limits, how to be in the dialogue with Chinese culture, especially in the Catholic university, which have no Catholics. Yeah, we have 25,000 students, 2,000 professors, but a very small percent, maybe 1% of Catholic of Christians. So as a very short conclusion, I would like to say that religion should be a life experience. To be Christian means to live in the presence of God, for me. Name is maybe not always the mission. Labels is not always related to the content. Dialogue also means a dialogue with myself, with my own history, my own tradition, my own experience. You can see also Christian values, also I can see Christian values also in folk religion traditions. And I think this is opportunity for a dialogue here. It's the biggest tradition, religious tradition in Taiwan. And maybe there is no better proof as God himself who is present there, if I believe it. Maybe later, there's also time for discussion. We speak about idolatry, and it's easy to speak, to make dialogue with Buddhism, with atheists. Yeah, this is the clear borders are there. But with folk religious dialogue, it's complicated because there is no one representative, no one institution, and we are a bit afraid of that. We think it's idolatry. It's better not to go inside. And the last sentence, I think we are Catholic in the Catholic University. If we stress care and dialogue, there are two Catholic values which are very appreciated in Taiwan, also before and until today. Okay, thank you for your attention, and I hope for some critical thinking. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I thank also Dr. Piotr Adamek.